Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We're on Pauri number 23. बहुत छोटी जी पारी है, but very meaningful, a very important step. साला ही सालाहा, इतनी सूरत न पाए, नदियाँ अतेवा, पवे समुंद न जानिए, समुंद सा सुल्तान, गिरहा सेती मालतन, कीड़ी तुल न होवनी, जेतिस मनो न विसरे. साला ही साला. Salahi is referring to those who praise God, जो उदी सलाह करते ने, जो उदी तारीफ करते ने, जो उदे गुनाह दी वड्याई करते ने, सलाह करन वाले, right? Salahi, those that praise Akal Purakh. Salahi salah. In the past pauris, in the previous pauris, Guru Sahib has talked about countless people in countless ways that praise Guruji, that live in divine consciousness. And this is a reference again to those people, Salahi Salah, Eti Surat Na Janiye. Ultimately what happens to people who are engaged in Akal Purakh's praises is they lose their own entity, they lose their own identity. Salahi Salah itni surat na janiye, unhanu apni surat nahi rehndi. They forget who they are. There is no division between them and Vaheguru Ji. They mingle with him, they merge with Vaheguru Ji. I don't like to use the word him anymore, knowing that Akal Purakh is this amazing light energy, whatever, that's gender free, but somehow that term comes up inadvertently. So those who remember Akal Purakh, those who engage in the praises of Akal Purakh, lose their own sense of self and merge with Vaheguru Ji. So on the superficial level it may seem like Salahi Salah Itni Surat Na Janiye, that they don't understand Vaheguru Ji's greatness, but that's not what it means over here. That means unhanu apni surat nahi rehndi, apni hosh nahi rehndi. You know, always think in terms of the worldly love. You know, when you love someone, you really forget about yourself. You are so immersed in your love for this person that you, in that first flush of love, you forget about who you are. Everything is about this individual. And when it comes to the divine realm, it's even more powerful, it's even more potent, it's even more intense for those that have felt it. That's what Guruji is saying here. Salahi Salah Iti Surat Na Paye, Nadiya Ateva Pave Samund Na Janiye. Just like the rivers that start from the mountains and ultimately find their way to the ocean, and when they merge with the ocean, the rivers don't remain rivers. You cannot tell the difference between a river, a stream, or any water that makes its way to the ocean. Nadiyan Ateva Pave Samund Na Janiye. You cannot tell. You cannot tell whether this is the river or this is the ocean. Until they merge with the ocean, you can say this is a river, this is a little stream, this is a pond, this is a lagoon, this is a puddle, right? It has its own identity, it has its own sphere, it has its own limitations, it has its own boundaries. But once the river makes its way back to the ocean from where it came, then the river doesn't exist. Similarly for the Bhagats, similarly for those who praise Vaheguru Ji, before that merger happens, the sense of separation is there.
So, Na Janiye at the end doesn't refer just to Samundar, it refers to all of them. Samundar Na Janiye, maybe we don't understand the ocean, or it just means...
The Nadi doesn't understand the ocean. Nadiyan Ateva Pave Samund Na Janiye.
But they don't really know what they are merging with.
They lose their sense of identity, is how I interpret it, and how others have interpreted. They lose it, and then really it's a metaphor for the human soul. That
would mean that Nadiya was Samundar, what kind of
No, when they merge. Yeah. So before the merger, before the nadi becomes the ocean, it has its own identity. But once it reaches the ocean, once it merges with the ocean, there is no separation, and there is no awareness of the nadi that it's separate from the ocean.
I was just looking at the word meanings.
So nadiyan.
Someone na janiye.
So one interpretation. So one interpretation is that the nadi doesn't understand the depth of the ocean, right?
That seems to be the more direct meaning, right?
That seems to be the more verbal translation. But they don't understand the depth, right? But they don't even understand the separateness. I mean, I think, like we always say, Gurbani is so nuanced, there are so many meanings. So one is that you don't understand the depth of what you're merging with. The other is that you don't understand the separation, that you don't know who you are. And somehow the second one appeals more to me, that you are lost in your love, and you are lost in the fact that you are one with where you came from. And there is no you. You know, this is the mystical thought that runs through several Gurbani verses, that, you know, before I loved you, before I merged with you, I existed, and now it's only you. So here the indication is that the same thing happens to us as human beings. We are separate as long as we are not one, we don't merge back, and it's our praises, it's our love that'll eventually take us back to our source. Now, we can look at it a little bit more deeply and say that all of us are making our way back to Vaheguruji. That's our journey. That's our spiritual journey. And becoming one with Vaheguruji is our spiritual goal, is the purpose of our life, right? And until that happens, there is restlessness that we all feel. Just like the nadi, it's meandering, it's going here, it's going there. When it's a waterfall, it's going fast. But then when it merges with the ocean, it's all over. It's the ocean. It becomes the ocean. The ocean absorbs the nadi. And that's how it happens to our soul, that once we merge back with Akal Purakh, we have reached our goal. We have reached our source. You know, if you think about
Source and our goal.
Source, our goal, our ultimate journey, right? Now, where does the nadi come from? Where does the water come from, right? I mean, it's actually vapors from the ocean that turn into clouds, that turn into rain, that turn into snow, that turns into rivers and goes back. And where do we come from? We come from Akal Purakh too. The light that we are carrying, the pilot light, and then we are journeying back to our source. Right. That's our mool, that's our source. And that's visible in just about everything, you know, in the microcosm. Look at a seed, you know, the development of a seed. It's a seed, right? You plant it in the soil, it sprouts, it becomes a plant, a tree, grows big, and then the seeds fall again, right? Those little things, goes back into the earth. You know, that's why dust to dust, ashes to ashes. You know, we become, I mean, we're all dust. We're all part of this mitti in some ways, right? And so, I mean, this is highly, highly nuanced. This one line, Nadiya Ateva, Pave Samundra Na Janiye. And then you can also interpret it as Jante Nahi As Yoda Ant. You know, the next line sort of points to what Viji is saying. Samund Sa Sultan, Gira Seti Maltan. The ocean is like this huge emperor. Udi depth hi nahi pata, udi riches hi nahi pata. I mean, if you think about it, the pearls in the ocean, the amazing, the coral, the wealth of the ocean. You know, the divers that go deep into it are enchanted by it. When we do these little dives, like, wow, you come back and you're like amazed, absolutely in wonder at what the ocean has in its depths. And oh, Sultan hai, right? The emperor hai. So Guruji is referring here again to the next line points to it. Samund Sa Sultan Girha Seti Maltan, like mountains of wealth. Girha is mountain, mountains of wealth, mountains of jewels it's carrying inside. However, Girha Seti Maltan Kiri Tul Nahovni Jetis Manuna Visre. All that wealth, all those treasures are worth not an iota compared to a kiri, the tiniest of creatures, right? Kiri tul nahove. It's the kiri that whose mind, whose heart. I mean, if the kiri is this tiny, what is the kiri's mind, right? But oh man, jara guru nu nahi visarda. That tiniest of beings that is in tune with Akal Purakh, Kiri Tul Nahovni Jetis Manuna Visre, that amazing wealth of the ocean, and pointing also to the wealth that we accumulate in this world, human beings, and get these titles of, whatever they may be, knights or sirs or lords or kings or pacha or whatever. Nothing, it's nothing compared to the Sacha Pacha. And that moment, that tiniest of seconds when you remember Vaheguru. Sukhmani Sahib has a line that says, I don't know if I'll be able to recall it, that even if for a second you remember Vaheguruji, that moment is so precious that all that wealth of the ocean, all the wealth of the world is nothing compared to it. So again here the indication is, it doesn't matter what you accumulate. It doesn't matter what you get in terms of titles, degrees, honor, whatever you accumulate in life is nothing compared to that 1 second, ik pal, when you think of Vaheguruji, when you are in tune, when you remember that greatness. That is worth more than anything. Kiri tul nahovni jetis mano na visre. That's it, right? We did the whole poem. Sala hi sala iti surat na janiye, nadiya ateva pave samund na janiye, samund saha sultan gira seti maltan, kiri tul nahovni jetis mano na visre. That moment when you remember you are greater. Your worth is greater than that of any emperor, anyone who has accumulated whatever in life. And conversely, if you don't engage and if you forget, you're nothing. And metaphorically, these thoughts these verses are like, wow. Mentally, theoretically, you may understand that. We may understand that, but to really get it, then our lives will be different. We will live them differently. Then everything will be focused on what reminds us of the Guru, what takes us on the Guru's path, who detracts us, what disengages us.
So when we're in tune with Vaheguru, then we see Him in everything and everyone around.
Definitely.
Actions, your relationships are all based on seeing the divine and everything.
Seeing the divine and doing what helps you. That's why the Sangat, that's why you seek people. Everyone, every soul that is separated from Vaheguruji seeks to go back. Panchapu Atma Nam Ras Pokhe. Whether we realize it or not, deep within us is the longing. It may be buried by other longings, but deep within us is that longing to become one with the Akal Purakh.
There are so many shabdas that talk about everything in the universe being Nam's
Bilkul. Yeah.
But how does that apply to people who are in fact, those of us who are Mormon books and separated from God? Are we doing something? Each one of them doing something at some level anyway, at the deepest level, they're still trying to get back to why we were that. And how you interpret that?
At the deepest level, there is that light. At the deepest level, we are all connected. But that nad, right? That nad that is there, that Guruji talks about, that is subdued. because of the other noise that we're letting, that we, yes, the separation. It's all about the sense of separation that we carry. And I think once that sense of separation goes, even in our everyday life, when our sense of separation from people goes, our relationships strengthen. Whenever we think of them and us, the ego is very powerful. The relationships are always tumultuous. But when that sense of separation goes, when empathy comes, empathy is an antidote for separation and for ego and all of that. When that happens, when empathy comes, that sense of separation is diluted, and then the faults and all of those are not visible. Because then you are connecting at a deeper level, not at the personality level. A lot can irritate us at the personality level, but when you go a little deeper and you see the human, when you are aware, and empathy arises because you see your own flaws as a human.
Happiness and fulfillment there is if you see God in everyone. Dukh nahi sab sukhi hai, eka eki lete. See, Vichaar sees one everywhere. Dukh nahi sab sukhi hai, eka eki lete. Bura nahi sab bhalai hai, haar nahi sab jete.
Beautiful.
From eka eki lete.
Yeah.
One bura is everywhere.
Could you relate the question to what you asked before about you said Naam, Gurbani says that many people think that everybody is doing Naam Japna. Everything is doing, yeah, that's actually more important. But then it says कि ये मानुख है ये उन्ना जो नहीं होता because it's like Jessi ji was saying it's very deeply inside and it has so many layers on the cover there. But I believe in the other part, but I don't understand that everything is doing, every living thing is doing Naam Japna Pir and universe and everything. So I don't know if you want to say something more about that. How is everything else doing the Naam? What does it mean really?
I think is that for one who is in tune with Vaigu, sees Vaigu in everything. So he's listening to that Naam symbol going on everywhere. It's coming from everything because everything is a creation of God. So he's seen God in everything, so he's seeing that Naam in everything. So to him everything is saying Vaigu, Vaigu.
Naam ke dhare sagle jant. Right?
Everything is a part of his,
There is a sound current.
That's for people. That's for people. That's not for people.
Even specific people, not all people.
Right. That's not this thing that the common noun everywhere.
I guess that applies as individuals, as humans. We are separated from Vaigu by our home, and then some of them feel that they're Punjab and they again get in touch. And the rest of nature,
Yeah. So that's
begin with
the
everything
nature
is a
is.
part of that, but then we get separated because of our
So the other part is it says that the nature, like you used that term, the nature is always doing Naam Japna, and once you're at that stage you can see that, but it's like the human beings, they don't know that they are Naam Japna and everybody else is actually doing the Naam Japna or something like that. Yeah.
Because you don't have any home.
Yeah, see, that's the key. The sense of separation is what causes pain.
It takes a baby a little while to realize that this is me and that's not me.
Yeah. And Gurbani says that when the child is born, the surat is with the source, and then the distractions happen, and then the pain starts. I think in order to apply this to life, Lina, I think all that we need to, I feel that any moment that we consciously live in divine consciousness, every moment that we think, we won't be able to do wrong, and if we do, our inner voice is strong enough, unless we've silenced it, that will guide us back. And people have become very adept at silencing it. We can see that around the world. I was reading something that Osho had written in one of his books, and he said that there's a lot of commonality between politicians and criminals. And he says that's because they've both silenced their voice. And that's why you see the duality. You know, the words are so comforting, so sweet, so assuring. You know, we'll investigate, we'll find out what's going on. And underneath, the agendas are different. But for those of us who are fortunately not in that role where we have to, guard our own, it's all about keeping your status so that you are not threatened, whatever your station in life. And I think if you don't get sucked into that and you are real every moment.
I don't think it's limited to politics.
That's why I said those.
And within politics, they're very dedicated people also.
There are some very dedicated people dedicated to safeguarding their own interests. Very few, Vijay. Yes, one cannot get too disillusioned, you're right. But it's hard sometimes when you see what is happening in the world. It's very hard. But I think, again, we have to look to ourselves, look within, and just keep our inner core as untainted as possible, and our hope alive, and our consciousness just in the divine as much as possible, and living by it. I think most important is living by it. Eti surtna paya nadiya deva pavisnun na janiye.
You know, you did the translation in a very so most of the traditional translations which are done, they are done more in a negative, like you also mentioned, right? They are more done in a negative. First they talk about jehde nahi karde hoye nahi samajhte, islahi salah ek bhi sutna janiye, us laande rehne hain samajhte nahi.
Right.
Then the second line they say inna sara sthani ikatha kar lene hain par khiri te barabar bhi nahi hunde. But I like the way you did it, like more in a positive way. Everything, right? So I mean, you merge, right? So I mean, the meaning overall is the same. You know, if you explain one way or the other, people kind of maybe get it. But I really like the way you try to interpret it in a very positive way. Ki merge ho jane, apni surat nahi landi, right? And also the comparing the smun seti malthan, gire seti malthan. That also, right, it's not like in the traditional ways. Inna tan ikatha kar lenge loki par ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀੜੀ ਵਰਗਾ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਨਾ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ. That's good.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, it's how, see, Gurbani is again, so it touches you, resonates in you depending on your own state of mind, I guess. Maybe on certain days Gurbani speaks to you one way, on another day it speaks to you, you know, it's on man di kai vari sthiti hundi hai na, ohi tusi kirtan jande ho and you say, oh maza nahi aaya, oh kirtan te ohi hai ki aaj live lag gayi, oh te bakshish निकालना ना. Okay, and so thank you so much. I really appreciate that. वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह.